Hello, this is Eye on Africa. I'm Yena Lee, and these are your headlines on the continent tonight. Sudanese security forces shoot dead at least 14 people, according to medics, as thousands of protesters march against last month's military coup. The Democratic Republic of Congo's Muslim community reel from both Islamist attacks and Islamophobic stigma as a militia group continues deadly assaults on citizens regardless of race or creed. And we'll bring you a story on baby turtles thriving on Senegalese shores, the pandemic slowdown helping threatened and endangered species. Let's start the show with the latest on the protests in Sudan. Security forces shot dead another 14 people, this according to a group of medics on the ground. This would bring the total of fatalities to 38 since last month's coup. Hundreds of people have also been injured. The military takeover cut short a transitional council that came to power after the ouster of Omar al-Bashir in 2019. It has also prompted repeated protests, mostly in the capital, Khartoum. Now, for more on this, journalist Naba Mohideen joins me on the line. Naba, tell us more about the situation in Khartoum this Wednesday.
The situation is still fragile, where the bridges are closed, it's still closed, and the movement in the capital is not very passable because of the heavy deployment of security forces and different checkpoints. Also, phone signals and internet are still shut down by the security and by the authority. Some neighborhoods like Buri and Omdurman, they are holding a one-day sit-in, condemning the excessive use of violence and the security forces killing of at least 11 protesters. The numbers are not confirmed because of the lack of communication between different groups, like medic groups and pro-democracy groups. But 11 are confirmed and 3 are not confirmed yet. The security situation is still unclear, and I think, escalation will continue as the military is insisting to take this way of using violence against peaceful protesters.
It seems like it's a political impasse. Naba, remind us, what are the protesters' demands and what would be the next step for them?
The protesters demand the military to step back a day before October 25th. They want the reinstatement of the Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok and his cabinet. And they want the military to be excluded from the political scene. They also want the release of the political detainees, and they want a punishment of military leaders and, of course, of the former government. But now all of the calls are for release, the release of the ousted Prime Minister and his cabinet. And I think the protests will continue in the upcoming days because HPA, which is Sudanese Professionals Association, is calling for more escalatory steps as the military is insisting to take unilateral decisions and to exclude anyone from the scene after forming of the Sovereign Council. And there is some news that the military will form a government and will make all of the governance structures, whether with Hamdok or not, in the upcoming 48 hours.
All right, thank you. Naba Mohideen reporting for us there in Khartoum. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Kenya, the first of a 3-stop tour of African countries. He spoke about the importance of upholding democratic systems on the continent, mentioning the political uncertainty in Sudan, adding that Kenya also faces a test of stability with upcoming presidential elections. Also on his radar, the conflict in Ethiopia. Take a listen.
One place where we're both deeply concerned is Ethiopia. The conflict there threatens not just that country, but its neighbors as well. We'd like to see the parties come together at the table to put in place a cessation of hostilities. We need to see humanitarian assistance flow freely now. We need to see people detained released, and we need to see everyone engaging in an effort to resolve the differences that exist peacefully and constitutionally.
Staying in Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta has sacked the country's prisons boss on Wednesday. This after 3 convicted terrorists escaped a heavily guarded facility outside Nairobi, one of the fugitives that took part in the 2015 Garissa University attacks. Authorities have launched a nationwide manhunt and also boosted security. Police are on high alert, especially on the border with Uganda after Tuesday's suicide bombings there. More on this developing story, here's our correspondent Caroline Kimo.
President Kenyatta fired Commissioner General for Prisons Wycliffe Ogallo for the escape of 3 terror convicts from the country's maximum security prison. 7 prison wardens have also been arrested in relation with the escape. The 3 terror convicts, one of whom was behind the Garissa University attacks that killed 148 people, are Musharraf Abdallah, Muhammad Ali, and Joseph Juma. A new Commissioner General was appointed and sworn in immediately after the sacking. According to the Office of the President, the President's swift move on this issue is meant to ensure that there is accountability in all ranks of the security forces. It also comes in the wake of heightened security measures across the country after 2 suicide bombings took place in Uganda's capital on Tuesday. The President has directed Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i to move with all necessary urgency and take all necessary measures to ensure that the convicts are apprehended. He also urged Kenyans to report and provide any information that might be helpful in the recapture of the convicts. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations has placed as well a 60 million shilling bounty on their heads.
Let's head over next to the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Muslim community in the northeastern city of Beni reports facing increasing discrimination. This as a militia with alleged links to the Islamic State group carries out attacks on civilians. Muslims complain that they're being lumped together with terrorists while they too have been under threat. Just last May, 2 imams were killed in Beni and many others have had to flee the region. Clement Bonnereau and Juliette Dubois sent us this report.
On the 1st of May, this woman's husband, Imam Ali Amin, was murdered during prayer time in Beni. 6 months later, the attacker's identity remains unknown, but authorities have blamed the ADF, a militia accused of links with the Islamic State group.
My husband had been receiving threats, and yet he remained in Beni. He always refused to leave. He wasn't afraid. I don't understand why he was killed. He got along with everyone.
The Imam regularly condemned the massacres committed by the ADF in his preaching. Yet 3 weeks before his death, he was briefly detained by authorities, which his family says was on suspicion that he was collaborating with the rebels. At Beni's central mosque, where he used to lead prayers, shock has turned into bitterness.
Muslims are being stigmatized. We're being labeled as members of the ADF, and people accuse us of being accomplices to those who attack us.
We feel abandoned by the authorities. We want to be safe like everyone else in this city.
To protect their community, some worshippers now volunteered to guard the entrance to the mosque. Security has been tightened.
We built a new fence and we reinforced the gate with this chain.
Since the death of Imam Ali Amin and the killing of another preacher in late May, Muslims have begun to speak out against the stigma they face.
Mpendwa msikilizaji, karibu tena kwenye kipindi chenu kipendelevu Sauti ya Uislamu.
This Imam hosts a weekly radio show which aims to fight prejudice against his community.
We cannot be silent. We have to tell non-Muslims that everything they hear about Islam is not true. Islam respects the dignity of every human being.
In recent months, at least 7 imams have fled Beni and North Kivu, fearing for their lives.
And finally, we end the show with some positive news. Baby turtles are back on Senegal's shores. Tourism, fishing and construction have threatened several species, but with the pandemic slowdown, nests have started to flourish. France 24's Nicolas Germain has the story.
In Senegal, the lockdown had beneficial effects for turtles. There are now more of them on the beach in Guéréo, 60 kilometers south of Dakar. Before the lockdown, 2 turtles a year laid eggs here. After the restrictions, there were 15.
There were fewer boats and fewer people on the beaches and in the hotels. So there was less light, and more turtles came to lay their eggs on the beaches. Since last year, they have come back.
Cages are set up to protect the nests from birds of prey and dogs. The turtles are an endangered species, yet they are vital for the ocean.
They regulate the quantities of marine algae by eating them. Species like tuna, lobster and shrimp also eat the algae. If the turtles were to disappear, that would create an imbalance in the food chain and threaten the entire ecosystem.
This year there were fewer restrictions and the number of nests fell from 15 to 7. To protect the turtles, NGOs say the tourism sector must be more environmentally friendly and the construction of villas and hotels on the beaches must diminish.
That's it for Eye on Africa. More international news with Mark Owen coming up after the break.
Since the 12th century, Catholic priests have been required to practice celibacy, a controversial issue that touches on deep social and religious taboos.
Je ne suis pas que prêtre, c'est une fonction, je suis un homme avant tout.
Je crois que si ça les conduit à vivre une double vie, il est capital qu'ils ne soient pas prêtres ou qu'ils renoncent à être prêtres.
Discover the extraordinary stories of men and women who have fallen into blasphemous love.
On a juste envie de vivre comme tout le monde.
On a beau dire que Dieu est amour, pour moi, visiblement, ça n'était pas suffisant. Et ça, j'en souffrais.
Don't miss our reporter's investigation into the heart of faith on France 24 and France24.com.